My deadbeat parents want me back to Playhouse. They want to pretend that they didn't treat me like a nuisance for my whole life so that their perfect little planned child can be happy. I was born when my parents were very young. My mother was 16 and my father was 17. Both families decided it would be best for me if my maternal grandparents raised me and my biological parents got to go out and party. I knew who they were my whole life and spent most of it wondering why they didn't want me. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23 and I was around 7. But that doesn't mean we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions, showed interest in my academic work, or took me to do any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi and did not even look at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more my parents than her. My father was still living away. They weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activities like going to the cinema or my favorite restaurant, things like that. Still, to me, he was more like a strange man than a dad, because when I compared him to my friend's father who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man whom I saw maybe twice a year, was supposed to be the same. Fast forward to a year ago, my father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. He made a bedroom for me in his home behind everyone's back. Both my parents had started hanging out in a couple of months. Later they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument with them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient and I could lose all my friends. The situation escalated by itself. Although my parents didn't let go of the idea, my parents asked for me to spend more time with them. This was particularly frustrating because even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely did with my mother. I hate her guts. She treated me like a burden my whole life. Last week they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they would buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I could finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner. I said that was never the problem and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could be a family, but my mother was pregnant so we were going to be a big happy family. I was shocked and I blew my lid on them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world and that they abandoned me for 16 and now they were going to bring another child into the world and do the same to them. They never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility, and only now that they feel like they care, they want to be my family. My mother screamed back at me, telling me I was a brat and that she wasn't going to make the same mistakes twice, raising her second baby. I told her she never raised me to begin with and my father said that they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, guess what? The best you could was pretty effing bad. I stormed out and went to my sobbing. I've been very depressed for the last week. They have both called and texted since, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I shouldn't move and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe they are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they are more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think that I'm the same age my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them.